Hi, now I'd like to take you through the wrong answers given in the question paper for some of the questions. Starting with the midterm question 23, I had pointed out in the after class discussion as well that hardware was mentioned in NIST and in Vaquero's definition as well, but it was not heard. So here I'm putting forward the definition of NIST given by Professor, the definition of Vaquero that was given in the question and in the slide as well. Both of them have a mention of hardware, network, server, storage. I mean, that is hardware, and this one also clearly has a mention of hardware. What is not mentioned over here is self-service is mentioned in NIST definition, and it is not mentioned in the Vaquero definition. So, which is why this option was marked by me, and I think it is correct only if somebody listens to me. Now this diagram, a question was asked based on this diagram, which is from module 1. It says the long horizontal boxes in the figure represent. So I went back to the module, I took the learnings from it once again. I will show you from the module and what I've interpreted both. So here is what the module says, and this is what I am interpreting it as. So the module is talking about theory of firm interpreted for IT. Transactions occur amongst functions, product development, finance, marketing, shipping, HR. Similarly, IT is a function of firm. And then these three conclusions are given. So I am just taking the conclusions from the main context being discussed. So first one is transaction occur amongst functions, and product development and marketing, finance, shipping, HR, etc. are functions. Similarly, IT is a function. So all of these are functions, and IT is also a function. That is the first takeaway from the theory of firm interpreted for IT. The second one is business process or workflow weaves across functions. Okay, so business process or workflow weaves across functions. Now it is interpreted for IT as business process workflow cuts across functions, and so does IT. So, so to interpret this, the business process workflow weaves across functions. Yes, they are weaving across the functions and IT, and so does IT, which is why IT is shown on the outer box, which is representing business process, and it is shown as a part of that box which is weaving across various functions, because that is what it is saying. IT also weaves across the functions. So this question says the long horizontal boxes in the figure represent. So long horizontal boxes are this one, and they represent business processes, and they also represent IT processes, because that is what theory of the firm concludes. Again, I had discussed, and he was very clear that it is not so. We should look a little more deeper. Question 54. With the adoption of cloud and challenge, the challenge and opportunity now are. Professor says the answer is overlay of applications on appropriate infrastructure becomes the key. To understand the concept of cloud, it says it provides IaaS services or PaaS services or SaaS services from the internet, and for PaaS and SaaS, the underlying infrastructure or the development process is taken care of by the cloud, and also for PaaS, any underlying infrastructure required is taken care of within the cloud itself, the consumer doesn't need to bother about it. So if there is one IaaS consumer, how he chooses the overlay of application on the infrastructure as a service consumed for cloud is absolutely immaterial to the adoption of cloud services as an infrastructure. Similarly, the PaaS consumer, how the PaaS consumer chooses his underlying infrastructure or the applications that he builds out of it is immaterial to the adoption of cloud that he does for the PaaS services, that is for the platform services. Again, the SaaS consumer, how the SaaS consumer chooses its infrastructure or development capabilities is irrelevant to the SaaS applications that it is taking from the cloud. So the overlay of applications on the appropriate infrastructure does not become the key. Any application can be installed on any kind of infrastructure, meaning any application of cloud service can be availed on a machine whatever may be its underlying infrastructure. This is the true option. Now in final question 1, the connection between cohesive theory and the cohesive theory of the firm and cloud computing. The answer is cohesive theory influences contraction and expansion of firm. Now we know that cohesive theory is about expansion and contraction of the firm. It influences because cloud computing uniquely permits IT functions to be sourced from an outside provider, which is true. IT functions to be sourced as infrastructure as a service, or just platform as a service, or just software as a service was not possible till the cloud computing came into being. So that is what cloud computing is actually providing, and that is how it is influencing the expansion and contraction of the firm. But apparently that is not the right answer. Now, question 26 in final, it says which of the following applies to the business viewpoint of IT service. So I went back to where professor talked about service and its two viewpoints, IT viewpoint and business viewpoint, and I saw that what is the discussion pertaining to about the notion of service and the notion of virtual. It pertains to facilitating the concept of cloud computing. The professor has said that disruption and key to underpinning cloud computing, that of service and virtual. So here the business viewpoint is service is something that is done to add value, possibly supported by IT. Now if we are talking about cloud computing, it has to be supported by IT. So the business viewpoint obviously also adds the IT perspective to it, that it can be called upon, it has to be a block, and it must be a block of computation, it must be callable, it must be supported by IT, and it must add value. The business viewpoint of service being possibly supported by IT, but that possibility not being taken in the answer choices is quite irritating. Question 30. The two phenomena of IT of a service and virtual resource are referred to disruptors due to. So the only correct option marked here is their potential to reduce cost while simultaneously improve performance, which is right, but the current economy being mostly service based and virtual across the globe, that is the current economy taking its shape by the extensive use and availability and cheapness of internet, was one of the major facilitating factors to serve IT as a service and virtual resource, and which is why it became the disruptors. I don't understand why is this option not correct, not one of the correct choices as well. And another option is software presenting itself as a service and being an intangible asset. Yes, software had become an intangible asset and it presented itself as a service by the use of service layers such as started by web services and all, which is from where the concept of taking blocks of computation to the internet to provide integration amongst various applications to become independent of the framework on which those applications were built was started by software presenting itself as a service, and it was becoming an intangible asset as well, which has also been one of the major disruptors of IT as a service and virtual resource. I will take you through one slide. Service oriented architecture and cloud. Here, as I mentioned, the integration problem was solved by creating a service layer in front of the business application using standard communication mechanisms and to perform integration in a consistent way. This is where standards like SOAP and REST came into picture. So further it says, furthermore, there are software libraries that simplify semantics of this integration and allow developers to focus on business problem they are solving rather than communication details. Cloud APIs are most commonly expose the features via REST and SOAP protocols. So this is the service layer which differentiates, service-oriented architecture from traditional concept of delivering software as a service. This service layer in front of the business application. So over the time, the service layer evolved into many roles beyond providing, mere integration facility. Cloud computing, being a part of a service-oriented architecture umbrella, provided not only integration facility for various infrastructure platform and software as a service using internet, but it also provided security, automation, on-demand facilities, metering and pay for use, etc. So I think that concept is missed out in discussion, and which is why probably these options are not even being considered, but they contribute to IT as a service and virtual resource as disruptors as much as their potential to reduce cost while simultaneously improve performance. Now in question 59, the security paradox of cloud computing means. Now paradox, what is a paradox? It is two conflicting statements. The options, none of the options are putting two conflicting statements. They are just putting a part of the statement, and both the parts are insufficiently put. Now this one says cloud computing will never be secure. The paradox says that public cloud computing will never be fully secure. So this one looks as the first part, and it can be interpreted as the first part as well. I mean, maybe public and fully was not considered significant enough, was taken as granted, like public cloud computing will never be fully secure. And another option is cloud computing has the prospects of improving overall security of the organization. Now, cloud computing is not meant to improve the overall security of the organization. What paradox included was that cloud computing has the ability to provision security services that add to the overall security of the organization. Cloud computing will never be used to increase the security of the organization. It is used to take the computation blocks to internet and make them accessible from internet to any place. Now, be it infrastructure as a service being taken to internet, or be it platform as a service being provided from the internet, or be it software as a service being provided from the internet. So it definitely requires to ensure security amongst any of these services that it's providing, and security becomes one of its main highlights. But cloud computing is not working to improve security. Yes, it has the ability to provision security services and add to overall security of the organization. So all options are insufficient, and this one also looks pretty much correct, considering cloud computing is taken as public cloud computing and secure is taken as fully secure, and it does sound like that is what it means. Now again, integration and automation service is evident from which of the following figure? The integration is evident from this API bus, whereas automation, which means that this system will have capability to procure services by its own planning, capacity planning and capacity management and service assurance, which is guessed from this portion being active. But professor insists that automation or self-service is only implementable by service catalog, which is absolutely wrong concept. Why? Because as I showed you over here, that this service layer which is being provided initially as an integration of various applications, and now it has evolved into cloud computing. Yes, cloud computing provides self-service, but there are also other services that it is providing. And yes, for the services that it is providing, a user will require service catalog, but for the self-service that it is providing, it will be provided by the cloud APIs. The cloud APIs will program and configure the virtual components, or specify storage and retrieval, or specify the deployment using anything that they need, be it SOAP protocol, be it REST protocol, or XML, RPC, other, or JavaScript. So to say that the self-service concept is provided using the service catalog is totally wrong. Now, the kind of analytics that usually lends itself better to hosted cloud. I don't understand how this answer is batch analytics, because one of the main offerings of cloud computing is availability of scaling on demand. And if the demand is assessed using batch analytics, the core advantage of cloud functionality to provide extension of resources or any extra resources that the immediate demand requires will be missed or postponed. I don't know how batch analytics is the correct answer over here. Real-time analytics has to be the answer. Now again, the next question, self-service capability in cloud is commonly accessed through. If it is self-service, what is happening over here is professor is insisting that by self-service he implies that it is any service that is being provided by cloud, which is wrong concept in itself. When we're talking about self-service capability of cloud, it should not require web portal or command line. It should be accessible from the browser or the thick client or the thin client, calling using the cloud service and using its self-service capability. Now, the example that I here discussed with Professor was the self-service capability of, say, Gmail, which is a cloud-based email being provided. Say the self-service capability of Gmail to provide storage space of 2 GB. This does not require web portal or command line or APIs to access it. It just requires the browser that we are accessing that service from, or the thin client or the thick client that is using the self-service capability that is provided from the cloud. Yes, the services that it will provide will require a web portal or command line or APIs for the user to be able to use the services. But the self-service capability has to be self-calling from the thin client, thick client, or browser. Now, question 14. Amazon EC2 architecture would be an example of. Now, Amazon EC2 is basically IaaS. So, majorly the DB and the monitoring and network and security architectures fall in the domain architecture scope, and solution architecture has SAP and much more elaborate architectures which have much more to provide than mere database, mere infrastructure or database facilities. So I was a little confused about how does it fall into solution architecture category, but I never got a chance to discuss this with Professor because he wrapped up on my conflict of concepts 7 questions. Question 42. Workload consists of. Now the correct option is all the business and IT applications that impose load on server or servers. The inappropriate options are all the business applications that impose load on servers, which is basically a subset of this one, all the application on servers or on a server or servers. Now, I don't know, I mean, can there be any other applications than business or IT on a server? These two look like subsets of the correct choice. So I don't understand why is all of the above incorrect. Again, I didn't get a chance to discuss this question. Now consider the diagram below and what does C represent? Now the correct answer given here is business service request is what C represents, but the IT component over here has no management capability listed. So if the business service component has to be something like, something that says manage increasing load on the server supporting UTD, that cannot get translated to which network to add or which storage to add or which server to add or which architecture to follow, unless there is some a capability to assess the situation and then call the required IT service required. So because of that missing component, IT service request seemed like the more appropriate choice, but I got no clarity on this. It was not discussed. Question 39. Consider the diagrams below and respond to the question. Figure 2 represents. Now again, as I pointed, because there was no IT service management in the IT block, to say C to be integrated service management, yes, the services are there and they are being integrated, But where is the management component? There is no management part over here. So it looked more like virtual IT being called, and I also presume that it will be IT service requests, which request one of the virtual services from the IT block, and it was also emphasized by the use of the dotted line, that it is the virtual IT that we're talking about, but seemingly not discussable concept. Now, the relationship between business service request and IT service request. Now, that is basically the answer is taking the figure 2 and taking this part as business service request and this part as IT service request, although the management capability is missing in this one, and which is why the answer is given as 1 is to n. But because this part does not have IT management capabilities, so I assume C has to be IT service request. So business service request is to IT service request is going n is to 1. So this